inside your face. Sitting in the wrong place. Cowards like you just get their whole body laced up with bullet holes and such.
Man, oh man, I was not ready to make a video today, but who would have thought that this week, which looked good, but not great, certainly not on paper what I would have thought would have been one of the best weeks of college football, turned out to be arguably the best week of the entire season. Um, let's just get right into it. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm gonna try and keep it a little short, but man, we have, let's just count these. This is my week 6 poll from last week. Let's count how many of these teams lost. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of my top 22 teams lost this week. So you can expect my next poll to be a fucking, I don't even know what to call it. Let's just start from the very top. Georgia at Kentucky. Kentucky being Georgia's toughest opponent yet, Georgia dogged them. Absolutely dogged Kentucky. It wasn't even close. It was never close. Let me show you guys what Georgia did just to open the game. Before you even get into the real box score and break that down, let me show you guys what Georgia did to start this game. Georgia went touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown, field goal to end the half. That's what Georgia did in the first half. 6 drives, 6 scores. Kentucky, 7 points in the first half. The game's over. The game was really over at 21-0. It really was. Georgia came out and treated Kentucky like how? Georgia made their toughest opponent their easiest game. And this is why, guys. This is why I was not panicking after the South Carolina game. This is why I was not panicking after the Auburn game, because I was able to see that Georgia was actually putting it together offensively and defensively, and they showed up in every which way this game. Where do I even begin? I have to talk about this from both teams' perspective because I also am going to talk about Kentucky here. But first of all, Carson Beck with his best game of the season, almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He threw a pick, but he was damn near flawless, guys. He was damn near flawless this game. Um, Look, Carson Beck, he's getting better and better every single game, and I'm starting to see what he's starting to get pretty close to his max potential because 400 yards, 4 touchdowns against a top 20 team in the country, that's enough. That's more than enough to win the national championship this year. They don't need Carson Beck to be a star, but this game he was a star. So it's scary to think how good this team can be. Georgia's been playing at about 75, 80% so far this year. This was 100%. You just saw Georgia in full force, dogging number 20 in the country. Dewan Edwards coming back has completely changed their running game for the better. Every single game he's played, starting at South Carolina, they've been able to run the football effectively. The first 2 games, they were not able to whatsoever. He was a major factor in both the passing and rushing game. 15 touches for 105 yards. He was great today. Kendall Milton also contributing heavily in the run game. Brock Bowers, was this his third straight game of at least 130 yards? Let's check that real quick. Try not to go back and forth too much here because I got 50 tabs pulled up. I just want to make sure. Brock Bowers game log. Yep. 3 straight games, guys. 3 straight games of at least 120 yards and a touchdown. Yeah. Brock Bowers got going. It's over for the rest of college football. Brock Bowers. Carson Beck and Brock Bowers have shown a great connection so far. Taking a look at the rest of Georgia receivers, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint surprisingly has been wide receiver 1 this year. I would not have expected that, but he has, and that's good for them. Homegrown receiver town. They brought a couple of transfers in. Ra Thomas has been very good. He's been very good so far. But Rosemary-Jacksaint has been the wide receiver 1. Dominic Levitt has been pretty consistent, but this was his worst game. McConkey didn't really get involved there defensively for Georgia. I mean, they just shut Kentucky down. 3 sacks. Kentucky, I mean, they didn't really turn it over. It doesn't look like Kentucky turned it over. So good on them, but it just wasn't enough. Looking from Kentucky's perspective, defensively, they just can't stop Georgia. You're not beating anybody if you let them score on every one of their possessions in the first half. You're just not going to be able to do it. Kentucky is not a high-powered offense. Devin Leary, for whatever reason, has not been able to get it going this season. Georgia is not the team to kind of, to start your run on. So Ray Davis, they tried, but you go down so big so early. I'll be honest, I don't think there's any team in the country that could have competed with Georgia today. Um, at home, they just dominated. So my opinion of Kentucky does not change too much. They're still going to be in my top 25, but I would have liked them to show something because they rolled over. It was too easy for Georgia this game, and yeah, that's the first game. That's one game. Oh my God, I spent what 5 minutes on that? Oh my God, this is gonna be an hour-long video. Michigan, Minnesota. Look, guys, let's go back to my poll. This is last week. Keep in mind, I dropped Michigan from 2 to 6. I think 2 weeks ago after the 3 interception game from McCarthy against Bowling Green, I believe. These last 2 games against conference opponents, Michigan's looked pretty damn good. 45-7, I think, against Nebraska, following that up with 52-10 against Minnesota. Michigan offensively is playing damn near flawlessly right now. They're able to run the ball very effectively with a number of guys. Donovan Edwards still has not gotten going yet this season. I almost feel like it's just, I don't want to say it's too late to get him going because if I say that, he's going to have 200 yards against Penn State or Ohio State. But they don't need Donovan Edwards. Blake Corum is doing more than enough. And J.J. McCarthy's involvement in the run game has helped. He scored several touchdowns this season. The wide receiver core, Roman Wilson has obviously been the number one. Cornelius Johnson, Colston Loveland have also got involved. It's just, look, we understand that Michigan has the easiest schedule in college football until it gets to Penn State, but that does not stop the fact that they've won every single game by scoring at least 30 points and allowing 10 or less. Okay? It's incredibly impressive. And I mean, defensively, over 6 games to not even have every single defensive performance has either been great or very great from Michigan. Okay? To not slip up whatsoever defensively is incredible. And offensively, they're literally getting better week by week now. 45 last week, 52 this week. I mean, they're firing on all cylinders. It's going to be very hard for me to keep Michigan at 6 in my next ranking. Next up, Florida State against Virginia Tech. Florida State massively underrated in my opinion. You can see right here, I had them at number 2 going into this week. That will not change, I don't think. Jordan Travis was a great game manager today. Like I said, Jordan Travis is not in my Heisman race. Even though other people are dropping out of it quickly, Jordan Travis still has not impressed me so far. But Trey Benson, I've been waiting on the Trey Benson game and it came here today. 200 yards on just 11 carries. Also got involved in the receiving game, so 14 touches, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Those were ridiculous. Lawrence Stafali also getting in there. Almost 300 rushing yards. Virginia Tech is not very good. We understand that. Johnny Wilson catching his first and second receiving touchdown of the season. Florida State defensively. 2 sacks, both coming from Jared Verse. You love to see that, get him going. Their most important defensive player here. Just a dominant win. 22-point win over a conference opponent. Florida State coming off a bye following the Clemson game. You like to see that they were firing on all cylinders this game. Nothing much to say. Florida State is probably going to remain at number 2 for me. Next up, we got Ohio State against Maryland. Ohio State this is a tale of 2 halves. Ohio State in the first half, you can see up here, did absolutely nothing. Maryland should have had a 13-10 lead going into halftime. They blew that. Second half, they came out flat. And Tulia Tagovailoa, from now on, I'll only be referring to him as Tua's little brother because he made 2 horrible throws this game, including a pick 6, which gave Ohio State all the momentum in the world. It could have easily been, what is that? It could have easily been 13-3 at halftime. But Ohio State had the better quarterback. He did not make mistakes. Maryland made mistakes. And finally, I can stop hearing about all the Maryland hype. I never believed in Tulia Tagovailoa. I just didn't think he was that good. I thought he made too many mistakes. I don't think he was accurate enough. He missed several throws. He had probably the worst game of his career. I'm not sure. He probably had like a 5 interception game before or something like that, but he played awful today, honestly. Maryland actually, in the first half, maybe even the first 3 quarters, you could say, Maryland dominated the line of scrimmage, which is very concerning if you're a Buckeyes fan because they weren't able to run the ball whatsoever. Mayan Williams has been a complete flop this season. Chip Trainum, a positive gain from the transfer portal, I believe. Henderson not playing this game for whatever reason. Marvin Harrison had to bail Ohio State out here because Ibuka got hurt early on, I believe, and Marv Teach had to do everything. Kyle McCord did nothing in the first half, but him and Marv got the connection going late in the game, and they rode that until they could not anymore. Defense made a lot of plays. Ohio State defensively have been great this season. What was it? 14 points to Notre Dame and 17 against 5 Maryland. Ohio State's defense is legit this year. Probably more legit than their offense even. JT Tuimoloau, 1.5 sacks. He had a very good game. Not much to say here. Maryland were absolute frauds that got exposed because they had every opportunity to win this game. They chose not to. Ohio State capitalizing off their opponent's mistakes. They looked very solid in the second half at least. And yeah, good one for Ohio State. Probably remains in for the top 4 for me. Probably remains in that top 4. Let's get to Red River. This was an amazing game. Probably, well, 2 years ago was like one of the best games ever. Not just Red River, but college football history. This game was not that good, but it was incredibly good. How do I want to compare this year? Oklahoma had the worst running back group. They had the worst wide receiver room. They had the worst offensive line, but they had the better quarterback. Is that all? Is that all? Is that it? Is that all I have to say? Quinn Ewers, one bad interception, one tip pass that was intercepted, and one fumble. So he turned it over 3 times. 2, I give 100% of the blame onto him. Dillon Gabriel, no turnovers. That's what won this game. In a 4-point game, a 3 turnover differential, it's too much to overcome. Jonathan Brooks is absolutely incredible, by the way. Texas running back. He might be on pace for like a 1,500 yard from scrimmage season with like over 12 touchdowns. Who would have thought? The first game or two, I did not think that they had an All-American level running back on this roster, and Jonathan Brooks just emerged out of nowhere and is on a tear right now. With that being said, Dillon Gabriel with about 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, and like I said, guys, their leading runner had 40. Their leading running back, sorry, had 46 yards at right about 3 yards a carry. Outside of Dillon Gabriel, they struggled to run the football, guys. It was rough. Their receivers, Jalil Farouk had a very good game this game. Probably the best game of his career. 8 touches, 143 yards. Andrew Anthony made plays. Drake Stoops made plays, but guys, we're comparing Drake Stoops and Andrew Anthony to Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington. By the way, I don't like to call myself an A.D. Mitchell hater, but I just think it's funny how he was supposed to be a top, receiver in the country, and he was, what is it? In their biggest game of the season, he was 5th in catches and receiving yards. I just like to throw that out there. But Oklahoma defensively, with all of those takeaways, they got after Quinn Ewers, 5 sacks on the day. Texas defense only had 1, by the way. So Oklahoma just outplayed Texas across the board. Better QB play. Their defense forcing turnovers when Texas could not. Their defense getting after the quarterback when Texas could not. With that being said, it came down to the wire. Oklahoma had to win this at the end of the game, and they did. And for the final time, I guess I will say this about Oklahoma. I was completely wrong about them to start the season. I was right and wrong. I was wrong on multiple fronts, though. I was right that Dillon Gabriel was a top 10 quarterback in the country. I said that before the season started. I think I actually had him at like 7 or 8. But I was wrong in the fact that I did not think they had enough running back talent, which still could be true, but I thought it was so not enough that it would hurt them. And I didn't think they'd have enough receiver talent. I was proven wrong on that. Jalil Farouk, Andrew Anthony, more than stepping up here. And I was wrong that I knew Dillon Gabriel was good, but I did not think he was good enough to uplift the lackluster talent around him. He is. He is right up there in the Heisman race for me. This is a massive win for them. Now, look, Texas is extremely overrated. I had never had them in the top five. I don't think I ever had them in the top seven. I think they were at 8 for me before this game. Oklahoma's probably going to move in their spot after this. But man, oh man, what a win for Oklahoma. Texas season is not over. If I had to guess, these two teams will rematch in the Big 12 championship game, assuming that both of those teams, well, assuming Oklahoma's undefeated, it'll be for their playoff spot. And if Texas has one loss still by that time and they win that game, they're on the outside looking into the playoff. We'll have to see how everything else shakes out. But I think a one loss or an undefeated Big 12 champion has a very good chance of making the playoff. Next up, this game just ended for me. Arizona USC. This was absolutely wild. I don't know how USC won this. Guys, back-to-back games against Pac-12 opponents, USC has given up 40 points. Their defense is even worse than last season, guys. This is Arizona's backup quarterback. This is not Jalen de Laura. This is Noah Fifita. Who the hell is that? And he had 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, guys. He outplayed Caleb Williams soundly. Soundly. Just look at these stats. Look at the stats. Arizona, the better quarterback, the better running back. Jonah Coleman, 140 yards. Jacob Cowing had 4 touchdowns. 4. 4 touchdowns, man. And they lost this game. I don't know how. I don't know how. Well, I do know how. They went for a horrible 2-point conversion attempt in triple overtime. I think it was. They couldn't stop USC. I'll admit that. In double overtime, I believe they got USC to like 2nd and 19, and USC just easy. It was so easy in overtime for USC. Both teams were just exhausted, I think, but Arizona even more so. It looked like. But USC, man. USC is at the very bottom of teams that I think could win a national championship because they have no defense. It's even worse than last season. Colorado and Arizona, there's a top 6 in the Pac-12. Colorado and Arizona are not in that top 6, and USC gave up 40 to both of them. Keep that in mind, guys. Please keep that in mind. I don't think that there is a, keep in mind, healthy top 8 team in the Pac-12 that can't score 40 on USC. Utah with their Division III quarterbacks, I don't think they can score 40. But every other team, because Oregon State just dropped 50 plus, we'll get to them. Every other team in the Pac-12's, top 6, they can all put up points on USC. So yeah, they've won 40-40 shootouts back-to-back weeks. They can't do that forever. They couldn't do that last season. At a certain point, your offense is not going to be flawless. Okay, and it's going to come back to bite them. We'll see how long. Caleb Williams had 4 touchdowns, 250 yards. Brennan Rice back-to-back very good weeks. Man, oh man. I wanted USC to win this or to lose this game. Sorry, so a little bias coming through, but USC's defense, man, back-to-back 40 pieces allowed. It's not gotten better whatsoever. Alabama versus Texas A&M. Texas A&M should have won this game. They fumbled all their opportunities away, not literally, but they had their chances to win this game at home, and they couldn't get it done. This was probably Jimbo's last chance, I'll be honest. They play Tennessee next week, I think. If they lose that game, I don't see how you can put any positive spin. That would be 0-3 against ranked teams this season for Texas A&M. Jalen Milroe had his best game. You can soundly say Jalen Milroe had his best game. 321 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was on fire throwing the deep ball, specifically to this guy down here, Jermaine Burton. Look, I have been a Jermaine Burton hater. And I'm not going to completely switch just because of one good game, okay? But this was a great game. Jermaine Burton probably just won Alabama this game. Okay, he got open twice on 40-plus yard bombs, breaking tackles, getting in the end zone, everything. He was amazing this game. He got hurt at the end, so let's hope he can stay healthy and continue to prove me wrong, but Jermaine Burton just had the game of his life. With that being said, Alabama still can't run the ball. Their offensive line still sucks. Alabama had probably 5 or 6 false starts. And let's just see how many sacks they gave up. Oh, they gave up 6 sacks. So so you guys know, they've given up at least 4 sacks every single game this season. Every single game, they're probably averaging 5 sacks allowed. Jalen Milroe has gotten absolutely destroyed this season, but Alabama's defense came to play. Absolutely came to play. They had 5 sacks of their own, a massive Caleb Downs interception. This was a game of inches. Texas A&M could have easily won this game with just one too many mistakes, not capitalizing in the red zone, not taking advantage of all the stops they get because they stopped Alabama a lot of times. This game was extremely choppy. No team put together multiple good drives in a row. A rough game to watch, but Jalen Milroe has arrived. He is now a guy who I think Alabama can beat top teams with. I don't think they're a contender. They are outside of the list of teams that I think can win a national championship, but I think at this point they can beat anybody on their schedule. So we'll see if they can bring the consistency to go undefeated by the time they get the SEC championship game. Ole Miss versus Arkansas. This one right here, Arkansas is just such a weird team, man. They play LSU down to the wire, but they lose. They get up on Texas A&M and they lose. They get up on Ole Miss playing down to the wire, but they lose. Something about Arkansas, man, about KJ Jefferson, they just can't win games when they need to, man. Against winnable games. All these are winnable games, but they just can't do it. Ole Miss squeaks out with the W. It's getting so uncomfortable sitting there. Ole Miss squeaks out with the W. Taking a look at the box score here. Quinshon Judkins, not as good as he was last week against LSU. He did more than enough, though. You know, how many touches here? 21 touches, 83 yards and a touchdown. He's been pretty consistent all year. Not Jackson Dart's best game whatsoever, but it was really the Ole Miss defense this game. You can see the 2 interceptions up there for KJ Jefferson. They got after him a lot. 5 sacks. The Ole Miss defense, look, they didn't do a goddamn thing against LSU last week, but against Bama and against Arkansas, they've put some good tape out there. They have played fairly well to start this. I mean, give up 36 yards rushing to Arkansas, you're doing a pretty good damn job. Okay? So, not much to say about this game. Ole Miss won a close game that they needed to win. They'll move up in my rankings even more. Good one for Ole Miss here. Arkansas, their season's been over, but it's the nail in the coffin. Let's see how bad it can get for them. North Carolina versus Syracuse. Syracuse starting off 4-0, dropping back-to-back games, but North Carolina just handled them. I was waiting for the Drake May game. Here it is. 497 total yards and 4 touchdowns. He dominated them. Syracuse didn't have a single answer to stop North Carolina this game. Amarion Hampton ran all over him. 200 rushing yards for North Carolina. They freed Devontae Walker. He came in, had a good game, but Nate McCullum, Kobe Paysour, Bryson Nesbitt, they were throwing it over the field. Syracuse couldn't do a goddamn thing to answer. The game was over very early. I mean, you can see North Carolina went up 27-0 at halftime. In North Carolina's defense, this is the 3rd game out of 5 already, guys, that I give North Carolina's defense an A+. South Carolina, Minnesota are the other 2 games, and against Syracuse, North Carolina, we'll talk about what their competition has done in about 10 seconds, but when you compare North Carolina to the rest of the ACC, they're the clear number 2. It looks like they're on a collision course for Florida State. I can't wait because they're playing at an extremely high level right now. Now let's get to what the other teams in the ACC are doing. This is one of the worst performances in Miami Hurricane history of the program. Georgia Tech did not want to win this game. They didn't deserve to win this game. They played awful. And this is the dangerous team. This is a team I thought should have, would have, could have beat Louisville week 1. They didn't. This is a team with a quarterback who's been playing well in Haynes King, but they just can't win close games until now. because Miami gave Georgia Tech every opportunity in the world to win this game. And eventually, Georgia Tech just took advantage of it. Miami with how many turnovers offensively? 4, 5, 5 offensive turnovers. Van Dyke had his worst game of the season, one of his worst games of his career. Miami's unranked for me. You can see week 6 here. I had them all the way up at 16. They're unranked. They're not getting ranked again unless they beat UNC, which UNC just 33-pieced 4-1 Syracuse, and Miami just lost to at home. Miami lost at home to 2-3 Georgia Tech. I don't see how Miami recovers from this. This is a demoralizing loss. This is a heart-crushing loss. This is a loss that I don't think teams recover from. I think UNC is going to stomp them next week after this game, and I just think it's going to spiral out of control for Miami at that point. They started off 4-0. Man, this was one of the last upsets I expected. I expected Miami to handle this game because they blew the brakes off Temple and Bethune. They just looked like a team that was able to physically handle weaker competition. But all of a sudden, this game, it just all goes out the window. They turn the ball over like crazy. So I don't get it. I don't have an explanation for this game. I just know they sucked. So yeah, just a disappointing game from Miami all around. And I don't know how to fix these problems. They're just unranked for me now. LSU versus Missouri. I watched every play of this game. It was incredible. Back and forth offensive showdown. Missouri gave LSU everything they had, but it was LSU's defense at the end of the day that made just enough plays to win this game. And look, I'm not going to pretend that LSU has a good defense because they've allowed, what is that, 94 points the last 2 games against 2 good offenses. I'll give you that. Missouri and Ole Miss probably the 3rd and 4th best, maybe even the 2nd and 3rd best offenses in the whole SEC. I'll give you that. But you can't give up 94 points in 2 games, man. Brady Cook played great, but it was the slightest margin of error this game if you wanted to win. You can't give LSU short field. You just can't do it. Jaden Daniels is too good. Logan Diggs is too good. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thompson, they're just too good. You can't give them short field. Missouri turned it over early in the game. Brady Cook threw a pick 6 to completely seal the game. Cody Schrader played amazing. Luther Burden played amazing. All the stars this game. If you bet the over on players for this game, you hit on everything. You just hit on everything. I mean, it was Missouri's defense. They stopped LSU a handful of times. It looked like it was going to be enough times, especially in the first half. But down the stretch, man, LSU 32 points. They outscored Missouri 32-14 in the second half. Jaden Daniels, another Heisman moment. I mean, almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Logan Diggs has been outstanding this season. But look, at the end of the day, Missouri played a tough team. They lost. They're still in my top 25 easily. I still think, like I said, this is a top 3 offense in the whole SEC. It's just such a tough loss, man, because they could have won. They could have easily won this game, but just enough mistakes. They could have won this game. It came down to a 3rd and 1 with a chance to either tie and take the lead, and then Missouri gets a penalty. False start makes it 3rd and 6. Obvious passing situation. LSU sends the house, gets home, strip sack, basically ends the game. That's how close it was, guys. 3rd and 1 and a penalty. Both teams were heavily penalized this game. I think each team had 11. Harold Perkins had a massive interception early in the game. I've been wondering why they're playing him out in coverage so much. That's probably why, because he can just do fucking everything, I guess. Great win for LSU, saving their season. If they lost this week, it was completely over, giving themselves some type of hope, if they run the table. But, man, Missouri, still a good team. Keep your heads held high. You beat Kentucky next week, you're right back in the race. Washington State versus UCLA. This was a tough one to stomach because I like Washington State. Let me plug my computer in real quick. 1 second. All right. I like Washington State. I love the way they played versus Oregon State, but for some reason this game they just got manhandled physically on the line of scrimmage. Cameron Ward had no time to throw. When he did have time to throw, he was making mistakes, uncharacteristic mistakes. I was hyping up Cameron Ward for the Heisman race, being a first round pick, everything like that, and then he goes and plays like this. Man, it's tough. It's a tough loss to swallow because they couldn't throw and they couldn't run. I think it's time we start talking about UCLA's defense as the best in the Pac-12 because against Utah they dominated, and against Washington State they dominated. Dante Moore, not his best game. He made too many mistakes, was not accurate enough, but he didn't need to be accurate because guys like Carson Steele came to play. Keegan Jones making enough plays in the run game. UCLA, man, they won this game with defense in the run game. Both quarterbacks made mistakes, did not play great, but it was UCLA who were able to hang their hats on their defense more so than Washington State. Taking a look at the defense, I mean, Laiatu Latu had a sack here, 3 sacks for UCLA, actually 4 for Washington State as well. Such a slim margin of error. Washington State they couldn't get the offense going. When they did, they turned the ball over. UCLA, both teams 4-1 now. I'm probably still going to have Washington State over UCLA, but UCLA is certainly moving into the top 2021 most likely. But man, this is a tough lot. And I'll just say this, let the Pac-12 cannibalism begin, because this is the first example. All these top 6 teams can beat each other. I would say Washington State and UCLA are 5 and 6 respectively, but man, any one of these teams can beat each other. It's going to be so hard for any Pac-12 team to go undefeated or maybe even 1 loss. Oregon State versus Cal. I didn't think DJ had it in him. I've said it for 2 weeks in a row now. After 2 bad performances against good teams, I'll add 2 good defenses. DJ looked horrible. He looked very bad the past 2 weeks in a row. But all of a sudden here against Cal, what does he do? 5 touchdowns, 19 for 20. I didn't think he had it in him. Honestly, I thought his confidence was shot. But he came out here, 289 yards, 5 touchdowns, man. Damian Martinez, they ran the ball extremely well. Fenwick and Martinez getting in there. The problem is they gave up 40 points to Cal. They gave up 241 rushing yards to Cal. So how do I judge this, basically? It's what I'm stuck with here. Because on one hand, I've seen the Oregon State offense in a way I haven't seen them yet this season. On the other hand, they gave up 40 to Cal. An uncharacteristically bad performance from their defense. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to feel about this game. Oregon State without a sack? Without a sack? They didn't give up a sack either. It's so tough. It's so tough. It just really depends on who they play coming up, but if they can add an efficient, low turnover offense to what I thought was a pretty good, but that's 2 out of the last 3 weeks. They gave up 40 plus points to Pac-12 opponents. So I don't know what to think of Oregon State right now. They're going to move up in the rankings because of how many teams lost this week, but man, 40 points to Cal, I can't get over that. Last game we're going to talk about here before my voice completely gives out is Notre Dame completely. The score honestly doesn't do it justice. Louisville dominated Notre Dame, dominated them from start to finish. Notre Dame never stood a chance this game. Sam Hartman had 0 picks going into this game. He had 3. He had 3 because he was running for his life. He didn't have time to throw. And when he did have time to throw, it just wasn't working. Unfortunately, it has come to fruition. The first 4 weeks of the season, it was kind of hidden. Notre Dame does not have a number 1 receiver on this roster. And I think it's really impacting Sam Hartman in a negative way. He has turned Mitchell Evans, the tight end, into the pseudo number 1 receiver, but the receiver talent on this team is lacking incredibly. Jaden Thomas, Chris Tyree, Merriweather, it's not enough. It's not even close to enough. They weren't able to run the football. First time this season. They ran against Ohio State well. They ran against Duke well. First time this season, they have not been able to get the running game going. Louisville, give them all the credit in the world. I didn't rank them. After they were 5-0, I did not rank them in my personal poll. But after this game, I got to pitch them some type of respect because they balled out offensively and defensively. No mistakes, no picks from the offense. They ran the ball incredibly well. Jawar Jordan, Jamari Thrash, their stars came to play. Their stars balled out offensively. And let's look at the sack numbers here. 5 sacks. Notre Dame's offensive line got bullied by Louisville. I'm trying to hammer that point home to y'all because it's ridiculous to think about. But here's the thing for Notre Dame. This is 3 weeks in a row where I think Notre Dame just didn't come to play. This is 3 weeks in a row where I think Notre Dame got out-coached, outperformed. The other team wanted it more. I think Notre Dame should have been 0-3 in the stretch. Duke threw that game away. 4th and 16 on a QB scramble to Sam Hartman is what it took to win Notre Dame that game against Duke. I think Notre Dame should have been 0-3 in this stretch. If they would have, I would have bumped them out my top 25 completely. Instead, I got them in the low 20s now, I think. Notre Dame completely blew their season away. They still have games against USC and Clemson. Maybe they win both those games, but it doesn't matter because they have a 0% chance of getting in the college football playoff because they played the worst 3-week stretch in Notre Dame history, arguably. Offensively did nothing 3 weeks in a row. Sam Hartman, he might have thrown, I guess he threw a couple touchdowns this game, but Sam Hartman's played awful. Offensive lines played awful. Running game getting worse by the week. Defense, they played pretty good the last 2 weeks. I'll give them that. This week, not at all. Incredibly disappointed by Notre Dame. Starting at Ohio State, it just seems like they're on a downward spiral. I don't think they're able to recover from that Ohio State loss. They should have won that game. Should have won more handedly at Duke. Could have won this game, but shout out to Louisville. Give them all the credit in the world. Notre Dame is free-falling right now. That's going to be it for this video. This shit took like 40 minutes. Oh, my God. This was a long one. It's 4 a.m. again, which I decided to record all these videos for some reason. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out the niggas don't know how to act.